In healthcare, we are trained to spot every single clinical detail, right? But what if the biggest threat to our patients isn't something we can see on a monitor or find in a lab result? What if it's actually sitting unseen right inside the leader of the team? Today, we're going to dive into the critical and often invisible danger of leadership blind spots in medicine.
You know the scene. We've all been there. There's a really complex case, and it feels like it's spiraling. The team is on edge, communication is starting to fray, and you, as the leader, you're trying to hold it all together. It is so easy to blame the situation or the system or maybe even your team. But what if the real root of all that friction is our own perception?
So to tackle this question, we're drawing on some absolutely brilliant work that's been discussed by the Culture Coalition. Our guides for this journey are going to be strategy expert Rita McGrath, the incredible concepts from the Arbinger Institute, and the powerful clinical perspectives of Dr. Marty Makary.
All right, first things first, let's diagnose the symptom. It usually starts with something simple, something seductive, and honestly something pretty dangerous: operating on autopilot. This is exactly where blind spots are born. So what exactly is a leadership blind spot? Well, Rita McGrath defines it as an unseen vulnerability. But here's the real paradox, the part that gets you. They're often created by our own past successes. Think about it. When you've done something well 100 times, you kind of stop looking for new threats. Our own success can literally make us less vigilant. And this is what leadership expert Bobby Laporte calls being on autopilot. You know, in the controlled chaos of a hospital, when you are constantly in the line of fire, autopilot feels good. It feels like efficiency. It feels like experience. But in reality, it's a trap. We stop making conscious choices and just start reacting based on habit. And this slide really shows the core difference. Autopilot mode? It's all about unconscious, habitual reactions. Your focus just narrows down to fixing the immediate problem right in front of you. But conscious choice? That's about deliberate, responsive action. The focus shifts to the best possible outcome, seeing the entire context, not just the items on a checklist. Okay, so if autopilot is the symptom, what's the root cause? This is where we have to look inward, at this really powerful psychological trap called self-deception. The Arbinger Institute puts it so simply: self-deception is the problem of not knowing you have a problem. It's this kind of willful blindness to our own part in the issues we're trying so hard to solve. And they use this incredible metaphor for it, being trapped in the box. It's a state where our view of reality gets all distorted just to protect our own ego. So how do we get in the box? Well, it's a 3-step cycle, and it happens in an instant. It starts with step 1, a sense to help. You know that gut feeling to do the right thing for someone else? But then comes step 2, self-betrayal, where we choose to ignore that feeling. And right on its heels, step 3 kicks in, justification. Our mind just scrambles to invent a story that makes our betrayal feel okay, which turns us into the hero and them into the problem.
Okay, here is a powerful, everyday example from the book. A wife takes the kids out so her hardworking husband can study. She comes back, and she finds him asleep on the couch. Her first instinct? Let him rest. But she betrays that instinct, and in that one moment, he transforms in her mind from a tired man who needs some sleep into a lazy, ungrateful husband. See? She created a story to justify ignoring her own better instincts. And this is the mental gymnastics we all perform. Once we're in the box, we start building our case. We exaggerate their flaws, we inflate our own virtues, and we find any excuse in the book to justify what we did. It's like looking in a funhouse mirror that distorts reality just enough to make us look good and them look bad. All right, so this whole internal drama feels kind of personal, right? But why does it matter in a clinical setting? Because a leader's internal state has a direct, tangible, and sometimes absolutely devastating impact on their team, and most importantly, their patients.
Just consider this stark historical example. Dr. Semmelweis was a brilliant physician back in 19th century Vienna, but he was completely baffled. Why were the mortality rates in his maternity ward catastrophically high? The blind spot was on his own hands. He and his fellow doctors were going from performing autopsies right to delivering babies without washing them. He was so focused on external factors, he couldn't see his own role in the tragedy, and thousands of women died because of it. So when a leader is in the box, it poisons the whole team dynamic, and it creates what the Arbinger Institute calls collusion. This is a really destructive cycle where we provoke the very behaviors in other people that we complain about. For example, you see a colleague as untrustworthy, so you stop sharing key info with them. And in response, they become secretive and guarded, which then proves to you that they were untrustworthy all along. We literally create the reality we expect to see.
So what are the warning signs that your team might be stuck in collusion? Look for high turnover, constant blame shifting, and, this one is so crucial, team silence. If your team members hardly ever offer ideas or challenge anything or ask questions in meetings, don't just assume it's alignment. More often than not, their silence signals fear.
So we've diagnosed the problem, and we've seen its impact. Now for the most important part, the treatment plan. How do we get out of the box and start leading more effectively?
So, the million-dollar question is, how do we get out of the box?
The answer is all about shifting our mindset. When we're in the box, we have an inward mindset. We see other people as objects, obstacles to our goals, vehicles for our success, or maybe just totally irrelevant. The shift we need to make is to an outward mindset, where we see others as people, with their own needs, their own challenges, and their own goals that are just as real and important as ours.
And this is a really important point. An outward mindset is not about just being nice. It's not about avoiding tough conversations. It's actually the opposite. It's what enables you to have those direct, clear conversations about performance. Because the goal isn't to protect your ego anymore. The goal is to genuinely help them succeed.
And this brings us right back to Rita McGrath's work. To see around corners and navigate uncertainty, which is pretty much the daily reality of healthcare, you can't just plan your way out. You have to learn your way out. And an outward mindset, one of genuine curiosity about other people, is the engine that drives that learning.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. The path out of the box. It starts with a simple, pretty humbling question. We have to stop asking, who is making things harder for me? And instead ask ourselves, who have I been making things harder for? The answer to that question, well, that's your first step towards seeing clearly again.